be talking about something very sensitive that I know that people have experienced, including myself. I have suffered childhood trauma, also known as CPTSD or complex PTSD. It's used in both senses. I am not a board certified psychologist, but I do have a master's of science from the University of Miami, and I have studied childhood trauma. My parents were divorced, and I do have abandonment issues because my father was never in my life, and I witnessed a lot of trauma between the two of them. I'm sure a lot of you have also experienced trauma, and this can play into our adult lives, especially regarding relationships. Relationships are so close to us because our first relationship was with our parents. So as an adult, we tend to mimic and recreate the situations that we lived through and we experienced through our childhood. We may not realize this, and this is why I'm going to be talking about limerence. Limerence, or obsessional love. Loving a fantasy and not a person. Because again, we could bring our inner childhood trauma into our relationships. And if someone ghosts us, for example, or it doesn't work out, we can feel a little bit abandoned. We can feel like, oh my gosh, it's our inner child is being hurt all over again. For example, before we dive deeper into today's subject, please don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and to hit that bell to turn on notifications and give me a thumbs up. It really helps my channel and my growth. A friend of mine was in a friends with benefits situation, and she was devastated when it didn't work out. She was very clear in the communication and had told him, I really want us to date. I really want a relationship. And he had said, yes, I want that too. But as they kept going and as they kept hooking up, it was pretty clear that he just wanted his cake and to eat it too, meaning that he wanted all the benefits from his side, but not the actual relationship. And she had said, I really need someone to feel something about me. I really need a relationship. I want feelings. And he had said, well, I do have feelings for you. But of course, those feelings, we all have feelings to have intimate relationships with someone, to engage in sexual relationships. Of course, but they're shallow feelings. So she had wanted, what was going on here is that she had wanted a relationship, but she didn't have the boundaries to actually have that relationship because healthy people, and he wasn't taking her seriously by her actions. Healthy people like a little bit of the chase. They want someone trustworthy. So how do you prove your trust? By not giving in right away. And I understand that a lot of us can have sexual relations without any feelings attached, and we're okay with that. But people who have gone through childhood trauma or have complex PTSD and have suffered any kind of trauma, especially as an adult, it just feeds into the abandonment part and it hurts us. It's almost like when you self-harm, and instead of actually hurting yourself by yourself, you're using a conduit to hurt yourself and you're reliving that trauma. So let's get into limerence, loving a fantasy, not a person. We're healing our inner child from a lifetime of emotional neglect. And by the way, I'm always for, if you get ghosted, block, because blocking is for them not to have access to you and you want to take your power back. It is easy to fall in love with a fantasy, a perfect image that exists only in our minds, flawless, effortless, without challenge or confrontation, a safe distance where we can project our desires without ever having to face emotional reality. They don't text back for hours, sometimes days. And in that absence, we create stories, we wait, we crave. And when they finally respond, a rush of dopamine floods our system, a small fleeting high, because we're so desperate. We'll take any crumbs to fill our abandonment. And of course, if they like you, they wouldn't leave you confused. But you're so used to a confused state due to our trauma that we can't see those red flags, that we have poor boundaries, that we rather have something than nothing. And this all goes back to our trauma. Much like Pavlov's dog salivating for a treat, we condition ourselves to accept the bare minimum. They take control and we give it willingly. Surrendering to their rhythms, waiting on their terms, it becomes a silent test. How much will we tolerate? How much disregard will we endure before they push us to the edge, before they block us, before we break? They gain an ego boost each time that they go days or hours without texting us and we text back right away. They're just saying, oh, can I still have access? So they get an ego boost from that. And in return, we lose more of ourselves. Our worth erodes in the waiting. It erodes. Logically, it doesn't make sense. Emotionally, it does. This cycle often traces back to how we were treated as children, especially by our caregivers. Emotional neglect breeds limerence, this obsessive, one-sided love that requires no effort on the other person's part. Are we so lonely that even a few scattered texts are enough to sustain us? If our parents didn't give us attention, why should this new person? Without realizing it, we engage in a form of self-harm. We seek out emotionally unavailable people, subconsciously recognizing their distance, yet still trying to win them over. We believe that if we just can make them love us, we will finally be whole. Again, it goes back to that child of wanting their parents to see them for who they are, to win them over. But that's not how love works. That's not how liking someone works. When you like someone, you are not confused. When they like you, they are not confused. You will know. But of course, this is a fantasy of them texting you every couple days, and you're making up in your mind because this person isn't here, you're not having constant contact with them, so you fill in the gaps because our brains are naturally curious. We fill in the gaps and we're like, oh, but he's perfect or she's perfect or they like us or they're busy. Of course, they'll make time for me on their terms. You can be perfectly busy and text back right away, but they can't. Do you think that's fair? It isn't. If they actually liked you, they wouldn't leave any room for hesitation. It is a fantasy because they're not in front of us, so we cannot confront the actual person. We cannot see their flaws. We can only see just a little curtain of what they're showing us. Just a little curtain of what they're showing us. And it isn't fair. It isn't fair to you at all. You don't deserve this. It is an illusion to think that disinterest is love. And a lot of movies and films, they like to show that if we don't block, if we keep that door open, they'll come back and try to win us over. But of course, it is a fantasy. It is not real. The most celebrated love songs, the most haunting poetry, so much of it is about someone we cannot have, someone just out of reach, a longing, a yearning, the idea that if we prove ourselves worthy, we will be rewarded, that our existence will finally feel validated, that the love we didn't get from our parents, the attention we didn't get, that we'll finally get it. But that's not how that works. There is no grand reward, no prize at the finish line, only the love we continue to give away, piece by piece, chipping away, love that was always meant for ourselves. You are giving too much. They are not your parents. No one can heal you but you. You can only heal yourself. The only way out of this cycle is to choose yourself, to reparent yourself, to give yourself the love and validation that was once withheld. It may take time, and at times it may feel lonely, but alone is not the same as lonely. We must unlearn the patterns that keep us stuck in this cycle of self-betrayal, self-harm. And we have to be vigilant against manipulative people that will see this, because normal people can tell when someone has been through trauma. And they can use this to their advantage, and that is what is happening. You do not want this to happen because it hurts and you feel empty, and I want you to feel loved and healed. Our inner child, starved for love, gives it away freely, hoping for reciprocity, for reciprocation. We convince ourselves that if we are the opposite of our parents, if we love harder, if we sacrifice more, then love will finally find us. But love does not come from self-abandonment. Healing requires self-love, boundaries, and the ability to recognize what is real versus what is a desperate creation of our wounded minds. One thing that has helped me is writing. When my emotions are too overwhelming, when my ability to problem solve is drained, because when you go through trauma, you go through this heightened state, almost like you have this overwhelming feeling in your chest and your problem solving skills are just zapped. You have no more energy to think and you're just overwhelmed on pure emotion. And when that happens, I found that it's better when my mind is completely overwhelmed to look back at what I wrote. So I have that logic, that problem solving on paper in front of me. And yes, I say paper because our phones can overwhelm us. Having a little notebook has really helped me. Social media, notifications, it all can overwhelm us in a heightened state. We want to dim the lights. We want to reset our nervous system to calm down. So we look at what we wrote. We look at patterns, and you can see that by writing that down. And that can help you feel out the situation, recognize what is going on in the situation. I turn to my journal. I document the reality, the red flags, the green flags, the patterns. Seeing it in writing makes it harder to romanticize, to romanticize limerence. We want to stay away, and we can heal from limerence. We can heal from that one-sided love of torture. The truth becomes clear, less clouded by longing and fantasy. To counteract this, I like to write down 3 things that make me happy each day. So for example, 3 things that made me happy yesterday was I love the scent of the new candles that I had bought. I'm reading more. Reading, which has helped me greatly in my wellness journey, is The Sacred Rest by Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. And there are 7 types of rest. I highly recommend this read. It has really brought more clarity into my life and has helped me with my moods because sleeping is not rest. There are different types of rest that can help us immensely, and if we don't rest, we cannot recover from our trauma. Writing these down and doing this has really helped me heal and reparent myself. Writing 3 things that made me happy each day, and you can do this. I know you could do it because it hires your self-esteem. You can get through this. You can make healthier choices. You do not have to accept breadcrumbs. They are not your parents. And your parents' neglect was never your fault. And I'm so sorry that that happened. But it was not your fault. You are capable of giving and receiving love. There is nothing wrong with you. It was them. And it is them. Deep down, you already know this. You can face it. Children blame themselves because they do not know any better. But as adults, we have the power to see the truth, to heal, and to finally give and receive the love that we deserve. But my friend, as you can see, friends with benefits, she was just hurting herself because there was no real love. There was no real emotions. Trust, especially when people say, oh, just trust, just go with the flow. That is the opposite of trust. Trust takes time to build. It doesn't just happen. That is a way of gaslighting and to not take any responsibility or blame for what happens in the situation. So you must watch out for these red flags. You should always go at your own pace, and anybody who pressures you is not for you. We want to get rid of anyone that cannot wait for you when the time is ready. You want someone who is patient. We want to get rid of those people that want instant gratification. If you're not ready, they need to be okay with that. Real love takes time to build, takes trust, and trust isn't just going with the flow. Please don't do friends with benefits. especially if you're with trauma, because it won't give you the love that you so greatly deserve. That you deserve. It is only self-harm. I hope today that my video has helped you and that you feel better. Again, do not be afraid to block. We are not in a romantic movie. You do not want people in your life that do not show you interest. They are not your parents. This is Talk to Jax. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, comment, share, and don't forget to turn on notifications.